Welcome to Cruising America's Waterways. I'm Jonathan Edwards, and today we're going to continue our journey from Memphis, Tennessee to New Orleans, Louisiana aboard the Mississippi Queen. So let's get going.
All right, I believe that'll do it. Let's just go all fast. We're all secured, we're finished with engines, and we have a 1300 departure for New Orleans.
1300 departure for New Orleans.
Thank you all. Good job. Thanks again.
As the morning fog burned away, the Mississippi Queen tied off to some trees on the levee across from Oak Alley. This part of the river derived its extraordinary wealth from sugar plantations. In fact, sugar was referred to as white gold.
Okay, when the Romans lived here, it was not called Oak Alley. It was called Bon Séjour. Good journey.
Good journey, yes.
Right. But over the years, the riverboat captains, when they got to the landmark of the Alley of Oaks, one more day to New Orleans, and say, oh, it's the Alley of Oaks. And over the years, it turned into Oak Alley. And that's how it got its name today, as Oak Alley. It was with the trees, the beautiful
they
live
are
oaks.
Gorgeous.
Yes.
They're, what, 300 years old?
Over that now.
Over 300 years old.
Over that.
The plantations themselves were built long and narrow from the river.
Right.
Explain that.
They were all long and narrow, and that's because each plantation needed a part of the levee because they traveled by water. It was the fastest way to get here. Only one day from New Orleans. And it would take 3 days if you traveled the river road. It was dirt, full of holes, and at night you had to stop at the house you were in front of. It was so dark you couldn't travel. There were robbers along the river. And so they traveled. It was safe for them. Everyone's contained on one boat. And so in one day they were here from New Orleans. And so they could dock their boat, and then the plantations are long because of the crop, and then they're narrow because if they needed help, if there was a fire, you can get your neighbors to run over by ringing the bell. Certain way you rang the bell, your neighbors would come running. And so each plantation had to have their section. They had to maintain their section of levee. And then later on, the Army Corps of Engineers came in and they dredged that river and made the levee higher. And then the plantation owners didn't have enough money to keep that up. So that's when the Army Corps of Engineers are the takers of our levee.
And the levee's now about 40 feet?
It's 40 feet from the river up, yes. And the river is about 200 feet deep, the center part of it.
So I would imagine at the time, though, maintaining the levee was
a lot
an incredibly
of work.
Important part of your job, too, because your neighbors would not want you to let go of that responsibility.
No, and they didn't. They did. They took care of their section of the levee, yes. You needed it to survive. I mean, your products came in, your mail came in, that's where you came in, so sure.
So this home now has become a place for tourists, and they can come and visit?
Yes, the very last owner of our home, Mrs. Andrew Stewart, not blessed with children, so she formed a foundation before her death that this house would remain open for the children of our parish so they can know their history. And people just started coming, and that's what happened. And we're so lucky to have this house, to know the past, because you can't learn unless you know your past. You know, you can't learn from it. And so she was so gracious and thoughtful and smart enough to realize that, yes.
And you now have about 200,000 visitors a year?
Yes, yes, from all over the world, all over, yes, it's wonderful.
3 miles away from Oak Alley and a world apart is Laura, a Creole sugarcane plantation built in 1805.
We don't explain anything. All we do is tell stories here, because what we're doing is interpreting a whole culture. The culture of South Louisiana, the way it was, what we call Creole, before it was the United States. We had a different lifestyle. Women played different roles in the culture than in the Anglo tradition. Women had more responsibilities. There's a different understanding of family versus the individual. In our culture in South Louisiana for 200 years, your family came first. If you wanted to be an individual, well, that meant you were going to be an Anglo-American. And they created that and kept that whole cultural identity. The way the house looks, when you see it at first, you say, my God, this doesn't look like a white column antebellum house. Well, into the 1920s, if you came on the river road, on the river in South Louisiana, and you saw a house painted white, well, that meant they spoke English inside. They were Anglos. If you see it brightly painted and no white paint, they speak French. They want you to know there's two worlds out here, and by God, this is not the other one. Slavery was still here when the Civil War broke out, and there were 185 slaves at the time. And when the Union soldiers came here, they came here first to Louisiana. This is their first invasion in the south was right in this area. And they came up the river and they bombed this main house. Laura's great-grandmother was killed, the slaves were set free, the family escaped, some of them went to Europe, some of them escaped to smaller towns away from here. And for about 4 or 5 years of the war, they're gone. And then they come back. They had hid their money, they continued in sugarcane afterwards, and Laura, who wrote her memoirs, said the Civil War came, the Civil War left, and nothing changed on this place. The workers came back. By national law, they had to be paid. The former slaves were paid the national minimum here, $12 a year. You're paid once, December 31st, never with cash, always with a piece of paper. And we have the book that shows how much they were paid. And on the paper says, everything you have coming to you, you already owe this back to the plantation store. So not much changed. What did change here, and what we try to interpret at this place, is the gradual absorption of this different, completely different culture into the American way of life. The story here is a tragedy. It's of a whole culture that was disintegrating every generation a little bit more and more.
We disembarked Oak Alley and continued down the Mississippi, headed for our final port, New Orleans. There was time for shipboard activities. Some passengers flew kites, literally. Others watched the increasing commercial traffic, and John, show off that he is, entered a fashion show. As the sun set, it was the most important time of day, dinner time.
Mardi Gras.
Oh, they usually do the ladies first. Go on.
874 I've only been here a couple of times.
There you go, thank you.
And these guys spend time.
All right, who got sucked into the casino yesterday? She'll made me.
Hi there, everyone.
Just one thing to say, I'm a little disappointed. I wish there had been a little more food.
Going once, twice, sold.
Mississippi mud pie.
Coffee's for her right here.
How are we doing?
Good, how are you?
Thank you.
Welcome to Hotel Monaco.
Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
We do have complimentary goldfish for you if you'd like. I can have a dinner room.
I'd love that.
Great. Well, I have one place in your room for you.
Terrific.
Great. Enjoy your stay with us.
Thanks very much.
This sounds like fun.
I've got somebody I want you to meet. Remember we told you at check-in that if you want, you can get a fish for your room to keep you company while you're staying at the Hotel Monaco. Well, we've got one here. And when I was looking through the book describing the amenities here at the hotel, I also discovered, as we said, the hotel is pet friendly. But did you know that you actually get a turn-down service for your pet if you bring one along? That's right, they will give your pet a turn-down service complete with a bowl of Evian water. You can also arrange for a vet if you need it. The staff will take your dog or cat, if you have a friendly cat, for a walk, and you can get a Bon Appetit package if your pet is interested.
We made our way to what at first looked like an art museum. The very attractive Port of New Orleans, host to an increasing number of luxury cruise ships, and much of our nation's commercial traffic.
Our port is what we call a general cargo port. And that is, we handle manufactured goods or semi-manufactured goods, semi-raw materials going to manufacturing plants. The other ports along the river here handle bulk materials for the most part, grain or crude oil and things like that in its bulk form. So New Orleans, our port facilities are for things like steel. Steel is probably our largest commodity. We do imports of things like copper, aluminum, zinc, lead in those bulk ingot forms. We're the largest import port in the United States for coffee, for green coffee. We are the largest import port in the United States for plywood. Plywood's coming from Indonesia, Malaysia. We're the largest import port in the United States for rubber, natural rubber, which is also coming from Indonesia and Malaysia, and going to our automobile tire manufacturers, which are located in the southern part of the United States.
How much traffic goes through this port?
This port handles about 20% of the total volume in the United States. It is definitely one of the largest port areas in the United States and probably in the world in terms of the total amount of tonnage that we handle here on any given year. It does drain the Mississippi Valley. It's some 12,000 miles of navigable waterways coming down from Pittsburgh, Minnesota, Cincinnati, St. Louis, Memphis, Kansas City, all the great industrial cities, and also the breadbasket of America, the agricultural areas of the United States. So agricultural products come down. We export over 60% of the total U.S. grain exports out of the lower Mississippi River. The advantages of using barge over other types of shipping transportation forms is a tremendous advantage.
Thank you. Way down yonder in New Orleans, in a land of dreamy scenes, there's a garden of Eden, that's what I mean. Creole babies with flashing eyes, softly whisper with tender sighs. Stop, give your lady fair a little smile. Stop, you bet your life you'll linger there a little while. There is heaven right here on earth with those Bourbon Street queens, way down yonder in New Orleans.
We're at the Bella Luna restaurant. We are in the capital of good eating, I think, New Orleans, Louisiana. I'm with Chef Horst Eichberg, and we're going to prepare crab cakes, right?
Yes, crab and crawfish cakes. What's one of our restaurant's favorite.
The Bella Luna restaurant specializes in?
Well, Bella Luna means beautiful moon. Me being German, living in Louisiana, having an Italian name, that tells you there it's a lot of blends together. And also here what we do, the crab cakes is very typical for Louisiana, New Orleans. And what I did here, I lived in Austin, Texas for a little while, so I blended a little bit the peppers together. Like we have right now jalapenos in here. We add the smoked chipotle, what is smoked jalapenos, and this adds a little bit flavor to it. And then I make it almost like a traditional remoulade. I just blend all these flavors together, and that's what makes it a little bit different. What we have here, 1 day old bread. It's typical for New Orleans. It's a very white, we call it soup sticks. It's an Italian French bread here. We add the celery, onions, and peppers to it. We just slide it in here. And we add 1 egg to it. A whole egg. We add a little bit some mayonnaise to it.
Looking better all the time.
And then a little bit some kosher salt or sea salt. What I make, when you constantly try to cook over the same dish and use always salt and pepper, you're looking for new flavors. And so I use some common mustard powder. So we mix it right now. So what I do here, I just cut a little bit some fresh herbs, and just to enhance the flavor later on into what we saute here. Grab a few little basil leaves, just throw them in there.
Fresh from the garden?
Fresh from the garden. Just saute everything a little bit together. I enjoyed cooking, and eventually when I had to make a decision when I was 15, I decided that's what I want to do. And I love it. And one thing, if you love what you do, then it's not work, then it's fun. Okay, we put the vinegar in there just to cook it down. Okay. We get back to our crab cake mixture. Now we let this sit for a little while, and we look at it. That's the consistency we look at it. It's not too moist.
Beautiful.
It's nice. Now we add the crab meat to it. I picked through this earlier, so if you get it from the store, make sure you always look through it, make sure there's all shells removed. And we add a little bit some crawfish. Now, if they're too big, you can cut them up a little bit. Then put just a little bit breadcrumbs in my hand, if they don't fly all over. And you can make them a little bit. And the breadcrumbs are only put on the outside so they don't stick on a pan. And you can have them this soft. Set it here. Like in the summer, this would be a dinner itself. You make 2-3 crab cakes, make a nice little salad, or nice tomatoes you grow in your garden, and it's an entree itself. So we make this, and then we go ahead and sear them off. And then I finish them in the oven.
Oh, okay.
It's what I do.
So you get a nice little crust on the
Yeah.
outside, and then let them bake a little.
Yes. So we just put a little bit some fresh herbs on it. Have some little bit some tomatoes and everything chopped up. They're almost brown enough. What I just did, I went and blended up our peppers and spices, and our sauce, the peppers. I mixed it with some mayonnaise, and that's
so
how
this
it's
is
going.
what you were cooking.
I was
sauteing
cooking
all the
and
vegetables.
blended it and put mayonnaise and sour cream in. And then we put in. Now, one thing I want to show you, how the restaurants always talk about in restaurant a beautiful design. We always have these fancy bottles and put it in there, cut it a little bit tall, and then you can just
make a little design on your plate.
Yeah, and then when your crab cakes are finished, you just slide them on there and serve it, and bon appetit.
Is that beautiful? All right, now's my part that I like the most. When we do these, I get to taste them. Well, this is delicious, and thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I'm eating well again.
Stop, give your lady fair a little smile. Oh, stop, you bet your life you'll linger there a little while. There is heaven right here on earth with those beautiful queens. Way out yonder in New Orleans. Way out yonder in New Orleans. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Several of New Orleans' most historic buildings can be found here in Jackson Square. From St. Louis Cathedral, the oldest active cathedral in North America, established in 1724 and rebuilt 3 times on the same spot, to the Cabildo, now part of the Louisiana State Museum.
Now you say the purchase. This was the Louisiana Purchase.
Yes, the Louisiana Purchase happened on December 20th, 1803 at the Cabildo. And in essence, the United States purchased Louisiana from France for $15 million. It took place right here in the Cabildo in the Salle Capitular. And what happened was the United States and French troops lined up on the Place d'Armes outside the Cabildo, while inside French colonial prefect Pierre Clément de Lassalle and U.S. Commissioners William Claiborne and General James Wilkinson signed the treaty. Prefect Lassalle then gave the keys of the city to General Wilkinson, and the parties then proceeded out to the balcony overlooking the Place d'Armes, where they witnessed the lowering of the French flag and the raising of the U.S. flag. With the hoisting of the Stars and Stripes, Louisiana became officially part of the United States.
$15 million.
$15 million, yes.
That was a lot of money at that time.
Well, for that time, it was a lot of money. Nowadays, I don't even think one square block in downtown New Orleans would be worth $15 million.
So in other words, it was a good buy.
Yes, it was an excellent buy.
What was the impetus behind the purchase at the time?
Well, Thomas Jefferson was elected president in 1800, and by 1801, he had an agenda of expanding America's borders. Naturally, he looked to Louisiana. There were already many American settlers and merchants who lived in New Orleans and part of the lower Mississippi Valley. So he sent 2 emissaries, Robert Livingston and James Monroe, to negotiate with Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte, who was the emperor of the Republic of France, to negotiate for the sale of Louisiana. And by 1803, Napoleon decided to sell. So in terms of modern-day states that were included in the purchase, you have Montana, the Dakotas, parts of Wyoming, parts of Nebraska, parts of Colorado, Kansas, parts of Oklahoma, and Arkansas, and Missouri, and Iowa.
Now, does that include the tributaries to the east?
Most of those were already,
already
claimed by the United States, yes.
So it was the Mississippi Valley plus its western tributaries.
Yes, exactly.
That's a lot of territory for
Yes,
$15 million.
a lot of territory.
Territory that made possible the likes of Rock and Bowl, which combines live music and bowling in a very New Orleans atmosphere.
We're at Brennan's Restaurant in New Orleans, and we're going to cook bananas Foster. And that was actually originated here, yes?
It was created here over 50 years ago. We have taken it all over the world. It's a fantastic dish. It's butter, brown sugar, cinnamon, banana liqueur, and it's flambéed with rum and it goes over vanilla ice cream.
And bananas. Now what you've done here is you've melted butter and you...
And I made a sauce out of it.
Melted the brown sugar into it, and you're coating the bananas with the...
And what we're doing, we're cooking the bananas, and then in a few minutes, you want it tender, but not mushy.
Okay, so you got to be careful not to overdo it.
Yeah, that's it.
Now, was this recipe an immediate hit? As soon as people started trying this, they said, this is good.
That's the way it was, you know, when you did it, everybody said such, you know. Okay,
this is the
now we're going to put a little touch on it.
Woo! That's rum, by the way.
And you see, if the bananas are still a little firm, when you put that rum in there,
that's going to cook it right
finish it cooking it off, you know. And that's the banana Foster.
And that's all. As soon as that goes out, you're ready. You're ready to start plating it.
That's it.
All right. So the bananas are arranged around the vanilla ice cream, and then you put that wonderful sauce on the top. I like this part of my job because I get to try new and usually very delicious things. See if I can do this gracefully, okay?
Okay.
Wow, delicious. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
That was great.
As we headed out of the Orleans Marina to explore Lake Pontchartrain, we were turned back because of an annual high-speed boat race. So you'll just have to believe me, the lake is a recreational mecca, 26 miles across and 12 feet deep on average.
Well, this concludes our journey down the Mississippi River from Memphis, Tennessee to New Orleans, Louisiana aboard the Mississippi Queen, and we thank you for joining us. See you next time on Cruising America's Waterways. I'm Jonathan Edwards.